The stars of the outer galaxy burned quietly, shining like small cold fires in the black ocean of space. It was a night without sound, a night without movement. Yet, beyond the edge of a dying sun, something great was waiting. Something vast, something dangerous. They came from every corner of the galaxy. Ships of strange and different designs slipped out of the void, one after another, until hundreds of them hung in the emptiness like a storm about to break. There were sleek silver cruisers with wings like blades. There were black and jagged destroyers, built to frighten as much as to kill. There were heavy carriers that moved slowly, but carried thousands of soldiers and fighters within their armored hulls. Each ship bore the mark of its own species, each commander bringing their pride and power into this united armada. They were not friends. Some of these species had fought each other for centuries. Old blood and old grudges still lived between them. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, they were united for one reason: to crush humanity once and for all. Across the fleet, voices filled the comm channels. The language of the stars was many, but the message was one. Humanity was a threat. Humanity had grown too fast, too bold. They had spread across worlds, defying the laws and warnings of elder races. Worse still, humans had fought back when challenged. They had won battles they should not have won. They had survived wars that should have destroyed them. The older empires were insulted, humiliated by this small upstart species. And so, the call had gone out: gather combined strength, and erased humanity before it grew into something greater. From the bridge of a massive flagship, an alien commander looked out at the armada. His eyes, cold and sharp, reflected the light of distant stars. This will be the end of the human disease, he declared to his officers. Around him, alien voices murmured in agreement. They were sure. They were ready. Ship after ship drifted into position, forming rings and walls of steel around the wormhole they had chosen. Their fleets stretched so wide that even the cameras could not capture them all. It was an army of gods, prepared to strike down mortals. Yet, for all their power, there was an unease in the air. The silence between ships was too heavy. The darkness around them felt too still. Some captains whispered to their crews, uneasy that no human scouts had appeared. No spies, no warnings. It was as if the humans had vanished. But pride is a strong shield. The commander silenced their doubts. Humans are weak, they reminded themselves. They hide, they beg, they cling to scraps of luck. Against this armada they will burn like dry leaves. Still, the universe seemed to hold its breath. On one of the smaller command ships, a young alien girl stood at the great viewing window. Her skin glowed faintly in the reflection of stars, her large eyes fixed on the gathering fleets. She had been raised to believe her people were strong, their allies unbreakable. Yet, something about the way the void stretched before her made her chest tighten. She said nothing, only watched, silently counting the ships as they arrived. The fleets continued to grow. Soon, there were thousands of vessels hanging in the dark waiting for the order to move. Engines hummed low, weapons glowed faint red, ready to fire at the first sign of humanity. Then came the speeches. Across every channel, commanders spoke to their crews. Their words were sharp and proud. They promised victory. They promised the fall of Earth and every colony that dared wave a human flag. They promised that, after this battle, the stars would once again belong only to the elder races. The soldiers cheered. The officers raised their voices. The fleets tightened formation. And yet, in that silence between the cheers, the universe seemed to whisper back, "Something is coming." The alien girl turned her gaze toward the wormhole at the center of the battlefield. It pulsed faintly, as if waiting. She could not explain why, but her heart raced. It was almost as if the void itself was alive, almost as if it was warning them. The commanders did not notice. Their pride blinded them. They believed numbers were enough. They believed history would obey their will. They believed that the humans could never stand against this sea of power. But deep in the quiet heart of space, something unseen stirred. The air itself seemed to thicken, and the stars around the wormhole trembled. And so the fleets waited, sure of their victory, certain that they had already won. They did not know, they could not know, that soon, in a single moment, everything would change. The fleets hung in silence. Thousands of alien ships floated in perfect formation, their dark bodies cutting sharp shapes against the stars. Weapons glowed faintly, power cores hummed deep, but no shot was fired. The quiet was heavy, almost unnatural. At first, the commanders felt strong in their unity. They believed this silence was the calm before their certain victory. But as the moments stretched, the silence began to bite at them. Something about the empty black ahead felt wrong. A captain on the edge of the fleet broke the stillness. His scanners showed ripples, strange movements in space itself. It was not debris, it was not static, it was something else. His crew whispered nervously. The captain called it an error, but inside, his stomach turned. Other ships soon reported the same. Sensors flickered, shadows appeared where no shadows should exist. Energy spikes ran across systems, brief and sharp, like lightning hidden behind clouds. The stars around the wormhole looked twisted, as if the fabric of space was being pulled and stretched. Whispers spread. Some called it a trick, some called it a weapon. Others laughed bitterly, saying humans were too weak to create fear. Still, the feeling grew heavier. The younger soldiers looked out of their viewing ports, hands shaking as if the void was watching them back. On the alien flagship, the young girl still stood at the great window. Her glowing eyes were fixed on the wormhole. She said nothing, but her hands gripped the railing. Her heart raced in her chest. She could not explain why, but she felt it. Something was about to come through. Something that would not be small. Something that would not be weak. Her father, the commander, saw her face and frowned. "Do not fear," he told her. His voice was calm, heavy with the pride of his people. "Humans are not strong. They are desperate. This armada will erase them." His words were sharp, but his eyes betrayed him. Even he felt the weight of the silence. Then a low vibration shook through the fleets. Not a sound, but a feeling, like the universe itself had taken a deep breath. The commanders barked orders. Weapons were armed, shields raised. Across thousands of ships, engines roared to life. Lights filled the darkness as the fleets prepared for war, yet no enemy appeared. Seconds turned to minutes. The wormhole pulsed faintly like a heart beating far away. The commanders began to grow impatient. Some shouted angrily over the channels. Others demanded answers from their sensors. Why was nothing happening? Why had humanity not sent a fleet? Where were their scouts, their defenders, their desperate fighters? It made no sense. Then, the laughter began again. Cruel, harsh, filled with pride. "The humans fear us," said one commander. "They do not come because they know this will be their end." Another added, "They hide like vermin. They hope we will grow tired and leave. But they do not understand. We are eternal. We do not wait. We end them." Their voices filled the channels, proud, mocking, certain of their dominance. The crews cheered, desperate to silence their own nerves. But still, the wormhole pulsed, and still, the silence stretched, deeper and heavier with every passing moment. The girl pressed her hand to the glass. Her breath fogged the surface. She whispered words only she could hear. "They are coming," and then, it happened. The stars bent. The black sky rippled. Space itself tore open with a violent twist of light. The wormhole flared like a wound in reality, glowing with blinding brightness. Shadows bent around it. Ships across the fleets shook as if struck by invisible waves. Every alien turned to face it. Every voice fell silent. The first outline appeared, slow and massive. At first it was only a shape, dark against the storm of light. Then, it emerged fully a warship, human in design but far greater than anything they had ever imagined. Its hull gleamed with a cold silver shine, its surface alive with rivers of blue fire. It carried itself not as a fragile craft, but as a beast, as a god, as something that belonged to the stars themselves. Gasps echoed across the channels. The commanders stared in disbelief. It was not a fleet. It was not an army. It was one ship. Just one. Confusion hit them first. Then came the anger. One ship, they mocked, their voices trembling beneath the words. They dare send only one. This is their last mistake. But when the scanners locked onto it, all laughter died. The readings poured in, impossible and terrifying. The energy inside this warship burned brighter than suns. Its weapons hummed with a silence that spoke of destruction. Its shields glowed with power far beyond anything the fleets had prepared for. Every captain felt their throat go dry. Every soldier felt the cold bite of fear in their chest. The girl's father stood frozen. His voice, once sharp and proud, would not come. His daughter turned her face to him, her eyes wide with fear and awe. "Father," she whispered, "this is not a ship. This is something else." Across the Armada, silence returned. But it was not the silence of waiting. It was the silence of dread. The silence of prey staring at the predator's eyes. The human warship moved forward slowly, calmly, like a giant waking from sleep. It did not rush. It did not hurry. It had no need to. And as it entered the battlefield, the fleets of the galaxy finally understood. They were not hunters. They were the hunted. The human warship hung in the void, a single titan standing against thousands. Its dark silver hull glowed faintly with streams of blue fire that ran across its surface like veins of light. Every alien eye was fixed on it. Every alien heart beat faster. For the first time in centuries, the entire fleets of proud empires felt the same thing: fear. The silence stretched until it was almost unbearable. Across the command channels, no one spoke. The alien captains waited for someone to laugh again, to call it a trick, to remind them of their power. But no one did. Their scanners told them the truth, and it was a truth too heavy to deny. The warship carried energy equal to a star. Its shields pulsed with a field that no weapon had ever touched. Its guns glowed softly, not in noise or rage, but in quiet confidence, as though they knew what they were about to do. The fleets had seen many ships, many wars, but nothing like this. This was not a machine. This was a nightmare wrapped in steel. On the alien flagship, the young girl pressed her hands against the glass, her wide eyes locked on the warship. Her lips trembled, but no words came. Her father, the commander, stood rigid behind her. He wanted to shout orders, to prove his authority, but his throat refused to obey. All he could do was stare. Then, the warship moved. Not fast, not with the reckless speed of a desperate fighter. Slowly, calmly, as if it owned the battlefield, as if it already knew how this would end. Its engines burned cold and blue, sending ripples across the void. Thousands of alien ships adjusted their aim, weapons glowing hotter, ready to fire. Commands crackled across channels against shouts, threats, orders to hold steady. The tension broke into noise. Fire. One commander finally screamed. The order spread like fire through dry grass. Across the fleets, weapons unleashed their fury. Beams of light, streams of plasma, rivers of missiles all aimed at one target. The void lit up like a storm, the brightness of 100 suns flaring all at once. And when the light faded, the warship was still there, untouched, unbroken. Its shields shimmered softly, like ripples on a pond disturbed by stones. Nothing had passed through. Nothing had even scratched its armor. Silence returned. But this silence was worse. It was heavier, darker. It pressed against every soldier, every captain, every commander. They had fired everything and it had meant nothing. The warship's guns came alive. A single beam of light erupted from its front cannon, a ray so bright it burned into the eyes of those who watched. It cut across the void in perfect silence, moving faster than thought. One alien cruiser vanished instantly. There was no explosion, no debris. It simply ceased to exist, erased from space as though it had never been. Gasps echoed across the fleets. Panic rippled through crews. Voices cracked over channels. Impossible, one shouted. One shot destroyed it. Another voice screamed for retreat, but no one moved. They were frozen, caught between disbelief and terror. The warship fired again. And again. Each shot was clean, precise, final. A destroyer gone. A carrier split apart in a flash of white fire. A battleship, proud and ancient, erased in a breath. The alien fleets broke formation, ships colliding as captains scrambled for escape. But there was nowhere to run. The girl on the flagship could not breathe. She pressed her face against the glass, watching the destruction unfold in waves of light. Her body trembled. She had thought humans weak, thought them reckless fools playing at war. But what she saw now was not weakness. It was power beyond her imagination. Her father clutched the railing, his hands shaking. He whispered words not meant for anyone to hear. This cannot be real. This cannot be. But it was real. The warship was real, and it was unstoppable. The alien armada screamed in chaos. Thousands of voices filled the channels, orders, cries, prayers, curses. Some ships tried to fight back, firing wildly, their weapons flashing uselessly against the shields. Others turned engines to full, fleeing into the dark. But the warship did not chase. It did not rush. It fired slowly, methodically, as if choosing its prey with patience. Each shot was like the strike of a god. Each explosion lit the void brighter than stars. The fleets that had come to crush humanity were now broken, bleeding into the darkness. Their pride, their arrogance, their unity all shattered in moments, and through it all the warship moved forward, steady, unshaken. The girl's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, not of anger, but of... She could not look away. She did not want to. She whispered softly, a single truth spoken in a trembling voice. This is not a war. This is a message. The commanders knew it too. The soldiers knew it. The entire galaxy would know it. Humanity had not come to beg. Humanity had not come to hide. Humanity had sent one ship strong enough to break empires. The girl pressed her hand to her chest, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. She felt the truth sinking deep into her soul. The human warship was more than a machine. It was a warning, It was a promise, and as the fleets burned and scattered in terror, the stars themselves seemed to whisper the same words again and again. Do not underestimate them. The battlefield was chaos. The once perfect formation of alien fleets was gone, broken into scattered fragments. Ships collided in their desperate rush to flee, explosions flashing like dying stars across the void. Voices filled the channels, panicked, broken, filled with fear. The proud unity of hundreds of species had vanished in an instant, replaced by the raw instinct to survive. The human warship did not chase. It moved forward slowly, steady as a mountain drifting through the sea. Every few seconds, one of its weapons fired. Each shot was clean, precise, almost cold. An alien cruiser disappeared. A battleship was split into fire. A carrier full of soldiers vanished in silence. It was not war. It was execution. Inside the flagship, the commander shouted orders, his voice sharp with fear. His officers scrambled, their hands shaking as they pressed controls, trying to keep the fleet together. But nothing worked. The scanners told the truth again and again. No weapon could touch the warship. No shield could resist it. Every strike against humanity's ship was like throwing dust into a storm. The young girl stood at the wide glass of the command deck, her glowing eyes wide with disbelief. She had grown up hearing stories of her people's greatness, of their allies' strength. She had believed in the Empire, in the power of numbers, in the certainty of victory. But as she watched the human ship erase entire vessels with single shots, all those beliefs cracked and fell away. Her hands trembled against the glass. She wanted to look away, but she couldn't. The warship was terrifying, yes, but it was also beautiful. Its movement was calm, graceful, almost deliberate. It was like watching a predator among prey, confident and untouchable. She felt fear in her chest, but alongside it, something else she could not name. Across the fleets, commanders screamed into the channels. Hold the line, one shouted, but his voice broke. Do not run, cried another, just before his ship vanished in a flash of light. Others begged their allies to stay, to fight, to show courage. But courage was gone. The fleets that had come to crush humanity were unraveling like threads pulled from cloth. Some ships turned on each other in blind panic, colliding as they tried to escape the warship's path. Others overloaded their engines, desperate to flee into hyperspace. But the warship's presence was everywhere. Its weapons struck without hurry, without mercy, cutting down those who tried to run just as easily as those who tried to fight. The commander of the flagship slammed his fists against the console, his face twisted with rage and fear. It is only one ship, he roared, though his voice shook. One ship cannot destroy us all. His words were loud, but his officers did not answer. They could see the truth with their own eyes. They could feel it in their bones. The girl turned to her father. It is not one ship, she whispered softly. It is something else. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the silent bridge. The officers froze, her words cutting deeper than their commander's orders. None of them could deny it. The warship fired again. The blast cut through 3 ships at once, their bodies breaking apart in fire and silence. For a brief second, the flames lit up the entire armada. The girl's reflection shone in the glass, her wide eyes glowing with that terrible light. She looked like she had seen the face of a god. Panic spread faster now. Whole squadrons broke away, fleeing in every direction. The Great Alliance was no longer an army, it was a storm of frightened ships scattering into the dark. The battlefield that had once promised humanity's destruction was now a graveyard of broken vessels and shattered pride. And still, the warship moved forward. The girl pressed her hand over her chest. Her heart felt like it was trying to escape. She could not stop trembling. She had never felt so small, so powerless. And yet, there was a strange pull inside her, a fascination that grew stronger with every passing moment. She should have hated this ship. She should have despised the humans for daring to stand against her people. But all she felt was awe. On the channels, the first commanders began to surrender. Their voices were broken, heavy with shame. Others refused, screaming defiance as their ships were erased. But the outcome was already written. The fleets were broken. The battle was over before it had truly begun. The commander of the flagship fell silent at last. His rage had burned away, leaving only despair in his eyes. He stared at the warship through the glass, his lips pressed tight. He had never believed his people could lose. He had never imagined this day would come. And yet, here it was. The girl's voice broke the silence again, soft but unshakable. They wanted to show us. Her father turned to her slowly, his eyes dark. Show us what? He asked, though he already feared the answer. That they do not need many, she said. Her eyes never left the warship. One is enough. The words hung in the air like a knife. No one on the bridge spoke. No one argued. The truth was too clear, too heavy to deny. Outside, the human warship paused for a moment, its glowing guns dimming slightly. The wreckage of countless alien ships drifted around it, glowing faintly in the light of burning debris. Then, slowly, the warship turned its vast body, as if searching for its next move. The girl's breath caught in her throat. For the first time, she felt as though the warship could see her, as though those glowing streams of light were eyes fixed directly on her. She shivered, caught between terror and wonder, and as the warship's engines flared again, pushing it deeper into the battlefield, she whispered words that none of them wanted to hear. Yet all of them believed, this is only the beginning. The battlefield burned, wreckage floated in every direction, pieces of broken cruisers and shattered fighters drifting like ash across the stars. What had once been the greatest armada the galaxy had ever seen was now a graveyard, and in the center of that graveyard, the human warship glowed like a predator surrounded by the bones of its prey. It moved slowly, without hurry, its enormous hull casting shadows over the burning debris. Its weapons, still warm from the destruction they had delivered, glowed faintly blue as they recharged. Every alien who still lived knew the truth. The ship could fire again at any moment, and when it did, another piece of their proud alliance would vanish. Panic had already taken root. The comm channels were chaos, filled with overlapping screams, cries for retreat, curses shouted at failing engines. Commanders who had once spoken with arrogance now begged their crews to flee. Orders no longer mattered. Fear was the only voice anyone listened to. On one battleship near the front, an officer tried to hold his crew together. "Stand and fight," he roared. His words echoed through the halls, but his soldiers looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. Their hands shook on their controls. Their hearts had already broken. When the warship turned its cannons toward them, the officer's voice cracked. The next instant, his ship was gone, erased in a single flash of light. The fleet scattered in every direction, like insects running from fire. Squadrons that had once flown in perfect order now smashed into each other in their desperation to escape. Engines roared, weapons fired blindly, and ships overloaded their jump drives without calculation. Some vanished into hyperspace, others ripped themselves apart in their haste to flee. The great alliance that had promised victory had turned into a storm of terrified fragments. On the flagship, the commander's face was pale, his pride shattered. He could not bring himself to speak. His daughter stood at the glass, her body frozen, her glowing eyes locked on the warship. She had never felt so powerless, so small, and yet she could not look away. The ship's presence drew her like gravity, terrifying and beautiful at once. The warship's cannons flared again. A beam of white-blue light cut across the battlefield, slicing through 3 fleeing destroyers as if they were nothing. The explosion lit up the wreckage, sending shockwaves of flame across drifting hulls. The girl flinched at the brightness, but her eyes stayed open. Her heart pounded painfully in her chest. The alien officers on the flagship whispered to each other. "Why are they doing this?" One asked. "Why send one ship?" Another shook his head. "This is not a battle. This is a lesson." The girl turned her head slightly, her voice soft but certain. "It is a warning." Her words chilled the officers. No one argued. The truth was too clear. The humans had chosen not to bring a fleet. They had chosen not to meet the alliance with equal numbers. They had sent one ship, and it was enough. The message was written in fire and death for all to see. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not prey. The warship moved again, turning with calm precision. Its glowing hull reflected the fire of the battlefield, making it look like a god forged from light and steel. Its cannons hummed, and another blast tore through space. This time, a massive carrier was struck, its hull splitting apart into fragments that spun wildly into the void. Thousands of alien soldiers died in an instant, their cries lost in silence. The girl pressed her hand against the glass, her body trembling. She should have wept for her people. She should have hated the humans for what they were doing. But all she felt was awe. Something inside her whispered that this moment was greater than her people, greater than the war itself. She was not just watching destruction. She was witnessing history. The flagship shuddered as shockwaves rolled past it. Officers clung to their stations, their faces pale, their voices breaking. The commander finally spoke, his voice hollow. "Signal retreat," he ordered. His pride was gone, burned away by fear. "Get us out, all of us." But even as his officers obeyed, he knew it was too late. The warship's presence filled the void like a net. Escape was possible for a few, maybe, but not for all. Many would die before they could run, and even those who fled would carry the memory with them forever. The girl's voice rose softly, almost a whisper. "They will never forget this. Her eyes shone with reflected fire as she watched another wave of alien ships vanish under the warship's guns. And neither will I. The human ship kept firing, each strike measured, unstoppable. It did not rush. It did not need to. The fear itself was a weapon, spreading faster than any beam or missile. Whole fleets broke apart without a fight, surrendering to terror before a single shot touched them. The galaxy had come to crush humanity. Now, the galaxy was learning the truth. Humanity could not be crushed. Humanity had teeth. Humanity had claws. Humanity had ships like this. The warship turned slowly, its glowing hull casting cold light across the burning wreckage. It did not speak, but its silence was louder than words. The girl felt it deep in her bones, a message that reached beyond language. We are here. We will not bow. We will not break. The warship's cannons pulsed again, and another flash of white fire erased a fleeing squadron. Panic spread further, faster. The battlefield was no longer a place of war. It was a place of terror, a place of legend being written in real time. And through it all, the young alien girl watched with wide, unblinking eyes, her heart caught between fear and wonder. She knew what everyone in the galaxy would know after this day. One ship was enough. The flagship trembled as another wave of shock rolled across the battlefield. The young alien girl held tightly to the railing near the wide glass window, her luminous eyes reflecting the chaos outside. Her heart thundered in her chest, each beat sharp and heavy. She had never imagined she would see something like this. She had never imagined she would feel so small. Around her, officers shouted, their voices cracking with fear. They scrambled at their stations, pressing buttons, sending orders, begging fleets to regroup. But their words were drowned in the storm of panic that filled the comm channels. Ships screamed for help. Captains cried for retreat. Some cursed humanity, swearing vengeance even as their ships broke apart in flames. Others begged for mercy that never came. The commander, her father, stood at the center of the bridge. His proud shoulders sagged, his jaw tight with shame. He had believed in the alliance. He had believed in numbers. He had believed no single force could ever threaten so many. Now, that belief lay shattered at his feet, just like the burning ships drifting across the void. The girl turned her eyes back to the warship. It glided through the wreckage with calm, steady movements. Its hull glowed like steel dipped in starlight, its weapons alive with quiet fire. There was no rush in its actions, no hint of desperation. It moved like a hunter that knew the prey was already trapped. She could not look away. Fear clutched her, yes, but it was mixed with something deeper, something she did not dare name. It was awe. It was fascination. The human ship terrified her, yet it also pulled at her like gravity. Every strike it fired was terrifying, but it was also beautiful, a deadly light painting the darkness. Her father finally spoke, his voice low, hollow. Signal the survivors. Full retreat. His eyes were locked on the warship, but his words carried to every officer. No one argued. No one questioned. They all knew this battle was lost. The girl lowered her gaze, watching her father's trembling hands. She had never seen him like this. He was a man of iron, a commander feared across sectors, a voice that made soldiers obey without question. Yet now, before the silent gaze of one human warship, he was broken. She lifted her chin, her eyes returning to the battlefield. It's not a war, she whispered softly. Her words were barely a breath, yet they carried in the silence of the bridge. It's a message. The officers glanced at her, uneasy. None spoke, but their faces revealed the truth. They agreed. The humans had not come to destroy the alliance completely. They had come to show what they could do. They had come to carve fear into the heart of every species. Outside, another beam of white-blue light erupted from the warship's guns. A squadron of fleeing destroyers was erased in an instant, their wreckage scattering into glowing dust. The girl's breath caught. She pressed her fingers against the cold glass, her eyes wide. She should have wept for the fallen, but no tears came. Instead, she felt her chest tighten with something heavier, something unshakable. Respect. The battlefield, once full of proud banners and shining fleets, was now only wreckage and flame. The alien alliance, so sure of its power, so certain of victory, had been broken not by an army, but by one ship. The girl's pulse quickened as she realized what that meant. The galaxy itself would change after this day. No empire would look at humans the same way again. Her father lowered his head, his voice barely audible. We underestimated them. His words were heavy, bitter, almost painful to hear. We thought them weak. We thought them fragile. But they are not. The girl's eyes never left the warship. Her voice was calm, steady. They are stronger than we ever believed. Silence filled the bridge once more. No officer dared to speak. No one dared to argue. The truth hung between them, undeniable. The warship slowed, drifting through the wreckage. For a moment, it did not fire. Its weapons dimmed slightly, glowing like embers waiting to flare again. It seemed to be watching, judging. The girl felt its gaze, though she knew it was only a machine. Still, something inside her whispered that the ship was alive in its own way, or at least carrying the will of something alive, something ruthless, something human. Her hands tightened against the glass as her thoughts spun wildly. If this was only one ship, how many more had humanity built? How much stronger could they become? The idea was terrifying, but also thrilling. For the first time in her life, she wondered what it would mean to stand with such power instead of against it. The comm channels fell into silence. The alien fleets were gone, scattered, fleeing into hyperspace or drifting as wreckage. Only the flagship remained close enough to watch the warship. The officers waited, uncertain, their eyes fixed on the silent giant in the distance. The girl's breath was soft, her voice trembling but firm. They wanted us to see, they wanted us to remember. She leaned closer to the glass, her glowing eyes locked on the ship. And we will. Her father turned slowly toward her, his face heavy with despair. He did not speak, but in his silence, she saw that he agreed. The lesson was written in fire across the stars. Humanity had delivered it with precision, with cruelty, with strength no one could deny. The warship began to turn, its massive frame glowing in the light of burning debris. It did not move fast. It did not need to. Its presence alone was enough to freeze every heart that watched. The girl's chest rose and fell quickly, her hands trembling. She had never felt so powerless, yet she had never felt so awake. She whispered, so softly that even her father could barely hear, "One ship, one is enough." And as the warship drifted into the darkness, leaving silence in its wake, she knew her life and the galaxy itself would never be the same. The battlefield was silent at last. The screaming channels had gone quiet, the cries of commanders and soldiers lost among the wreckage that drifted through space. Fire from broken hulls flickered dimly, painting the void in shades of red and orange. But even those flames seemed weak against the cold glow of the human warship. It floated alone in the darkness, calm, steady, untouchable. Thousands of ships had stood against it. Only one remained now, the alien flagship, watching from a distance it no longer believed was safe. The young alien girl pressed her hand against the glass window, her heart still racing. Her people had come with pride, with confidence, with the certainty of victory. Now all that remained was fear. She could see it in the eyes of the officers around her, hear it in the silence of her father. Pride was gone. The alliance was gone. The human warship turned slowly, its massive body cutting through the light of burning debris. It seemed to pause, as though gazing across the battlefield it had created. Then, its weapons dimmed, their glow fading back into silence. For the first time since it had appeared, the ship was not firing. The officers shifted uneasily. Some whispered that perhaps the humans would let them go. Others warned it was only waiting, preparing to strike again. None dared to raise their voices. All eyes stayed locked on the warship, waiting to see what it would choose. The commander clenched his fists at his sides. His voice was rough, low. Signal surrender. His pride cracked with the words, but he spoke them anyway. He knew there was no other path. His officers obeyed, sending out signals on every channel. The girl's eyes stayed fixed on the warship. She could not look away. Her people's defeat should have broken her, should have filled her with shame. But what she felt was something deeper. Respect, fear, or she had never believed one ship could hold such power. Yet she had seen it with her own eyes. The memory would never leave her, that her father stood beside her, his voice bitter. This day will haunt us. He turned his gaze to his daughter. Our enemies will tell this story. They will remind us of it again and again. She shook her head slowly. Not only enemies, she whispered. The whole galaxy will remember. Outside, the warship drifted forward once more, not toward them but past them, as if it no longer cared about the flagship. Its engines burned quietly, its weapons silent. It had already made its point. It did not need to kill them. It had already won. The girl felt her breath catch in her chest. She knew the warship could have destroyed them. It could have ended every ship, every life, but it had chosen not to. That choice was worse than death. It meant the humans had shown mercy not from weakness, but from strength. They wanted the survivors to spread the truth. They wanted the galaxy to know what one human ship could do. She turned to her father again, her voice steady this time. This was never about destroying us. It was about showing us. His jaw tightened, but he did not argue. He could not. The evidence burned all around them. The flagship's crew sat in silence, their eyes filled with despair. They had been part of the greatest armada ever assembled, and now they were little more than witnesses to a legend. The girl felt the weight of that truth pressing into her. She would carry it forever. The warship's engines flared brighter, and slowly it moved into the distance. It grew smaller, fading into the sea of stars. Yet even as it disappeared, its presence lingered. The silence it left behind was not peace. It was a silence filled with fear, filled with respect, filled with the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same. The girl pressed her forehead against the glass, whispering words only she could hear. One ship was enough. Those words echoed in her mind, circling again and again, louder than the alarms, louder than the whispers of the officers. One ship had undone everything her people had believed in. One ship had turned the galaxy upside down. Her father finally spoke again, his voice heavy with defeat. We thought them weak. We were wrong. We thought them small. We were wrong. We thought they would bow to us. He shook his head, his eyes dark. We were wrong. The girl straightened, her glowing eyes fixed on the fading trail of the warship. Her fear remained, but there was something else now: curiosity. She wondered how many more ships like this humanity had built. She wondered what their true strength was. She wondered what their future would bring. Her heart whispered a dangerous thought, one she dared not say aloud. Perhaps humanity was not the danger. Perhaps they were the future. Behind her, the bridge was silent, the crew lost in despair. But inside her, the girl felt alive, as if she had seen beyond the veil of lies and pride that had blinded her people. She had seen truth. She had seen power. As the warship vanished completely into the stars, the silence of space pressed close again. The battlefield was nothing but wreckage now, drifting endlessly. The Alliance was broken, its dream of crushing humanity destroyed. But in the silence, a legend had been born, a story that would echo across empires, carried on the tongues of survivors, whispered in the halls of power, feared in the dark corners of the galaxy. The humans had spoken without words. Their warship had written its message in fire, and that message was clear: do not challenge us. Do not underestimate us. Do not forget. The girl closed her eyes, her voice soft as a prayer. We will never forget.